The film introduces two Mormon missionaries, Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes, who are working to spread their faith and convert as many people as possible. Paxton is anxious because she has not managed to convert anyone during her time as a missionary, while Barnes appears more confident, having already converted 8 people. The two spend the day going door to door, but find little interest from the people they approach. Later, as rain begins to fall, they consult their list of contacts and arrive at the home of a man who had previously shown interest in their religion. After locking their bicycles outside, they knock, and an elderly man named Mr. Reed answers. He greets them warmly and notices the rain before inviting them inside, mentioning that his wife is also home. Once inside, the girls hand him their wet coats. Reed goes to the kitchen and returns with 2 sodas and a lit candle, explaining that his wife, who is shy, is baking a blueberry pie. The girls, smelling the pie, ask to meet her, and Reed assures them she will join shortly. Reed then asks about their personal lives.
Is it blueberry pie?
The girls answer cheerfully, and Paxton mentions she would like to be reincarnated as a butterfly so she could follow the people she loves. The conversation shifts when Reed asks their views on polygamy. Both girls express disapproval, prompting Reed to claim that Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, had multiple sexual relationships with women and encouraged other men in the faith to do the same, leading him to argue that the religion's foundation involves manipulation. When Barnes asks again about his wife, Reed leaves to find her. While he is gone, Barnes examines the lit candle and realizes the smell of blueberry pie is coming from the candle itself, not the kitchen. Before she can tell Paxton, Reed returns and asks them to follow him to meet his wife. Before entering, Barnes pretends to receive a call from her superior, and Reed gives them a moment alone. She tells Paxton they should leave, sensing something is wrong. They head for the front door, then realize the key to their bicycles is in Barnes's coat. The front door itself is also locked and will not budge. Attempting to call the church for help, they find they have no signal. At that moment, the lights go out and they go looking for Reed. They make their way down a dark hallway to a study with 2 additional doors where they find him. They tell him their superior called and asked them to return, and Reed agrees to let them go, returning their coats. But they discover the bicycle key is in Paxton's pocket rather than Barnes's, despite having placed it there. Regardless, they ask Reed to unlock the front door, and he tells them the locks are on a timer and will not open until morning, leaving the back door as the only way out. Reed then tells them not to lie, revealing that he already knows no one called, since the house's roof and walls are lined with metal that blocks any signal. Barnes asks which of the 2 doors leads outside, but Reed does not answer directly. Paxton asks him to bring his wife so she can accompany them, and Reed responds that they've already noticed the candle and the absence of an oven with a pie, yet still believe in his wife's existence in the same way they believe in God, because it was instilled in them from childhood.
I'll use your phone, please.
I don't have a telephone.
Frightened, the girls open both doors in the study, but each leads only to a dark basement, not outside. Elsewhere at the Mormon church, a minister named Kennedy is preparing to leave for the day when he checks the log and realizes Barnes and Paxton have not returned. He becomes concerned. Back at the house, Reed begins discussing his views on world religion, explaining that Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Mormonism all stem from the same source material in different forms. He argues that Judaism should be considered the original faith, yet only a small fraction of the world's population practices it today, while its offshoots have far larger followings, a difference he attributes to Judaism's lack of advertising or outreach compared to other religions. He tells the girls they are essentially salespeople selling a product. Reed then writes belief and disbelief on 2 doors, and challenges them to choose one to exit through.
Order! Excuse me.
Paxton moves toward the disbelief door, but Barnes stops her, saying the choice makes no difference since Reed has no intention of letting them go. Barnes instead chooses the belief door, and Paxton follows. When they ask if he is coming, Reed simply shuts the door on them. The girls find themselves in a dark basement furnished only with a table and a folding chair. Barnes stacks the chair on the table to try reaching a high window. But when they hear the door open above the stairs, they quickly put the furniture back. Barnes hands Paxton a letter opener she had taken from Reed's study, telling her to use it if he tries to hurt them. Someone soon enters the basement. They expect Reed,
Mr. Reed?
but instead find a barefoot woman in a dirty robe, who appears frail and disoriented. The woman sets a pie on the table and begins convulsing on the floor without speaking. Reed's voice comes through speakers installed in the basement, explaining that the woman is a prophet of God and that they are about to witness a miracle. She eats the pie, which Reed reveals is poisoned, and will soon die. The girls watch in horror as she collapses and dies. Reed instructs them to examine her, and they confirm, checking her pulse and breathing, that she is dead. Reed remains confident she will return and report what she witnessed in the afterlife. The doorbell rings and Reed leaves to answer it. The girls scream, but their cries do not reach the front door. Outside, in the middle of a snowstorm, it is Kennedy at the door, asking whether Reed has seen the two missionaries who were due to visit him. Reed tells him he has not seen them and that they never arrived. Kennedy apologizes for the intrusion and leaves, with Reed watching him go. Back in the basement, the girls notice a matchbox through the gap beneath the locked door and decide to set fire to the rug in hopes the smoke will draw attention. They manage to retrieve the matchbox, but as they descend the stairs, Paxton notices the dead woman's body has shifted slightly from where it was left. Barnes dismisses the observation and focuses on lighting a match, though she struggles to do so. The dead woman suddenly rises and begins vomiting, then describes what she experienced beyond life, ending with the words, "It's not real." Reed arrives and pulls her away from the girls, telling them the words they just heard are sacred and will be recorded in holy texts. He urges the girls that they too could die and experience what lies beyond, offering, he claims, definitive answers to the mysteries of existence. Barnes argues that what the woman described was simply a hallucination brought on by a near-death experience, recalling that she herself had a similar experience as a child, after a bout of food poisoning left her clinically dead before she recovered, during which she saw the same things the woman described. As she finishes speaking, she signals Paxton to attack. Before Paxton can act, Reed slits Barnes's throat with a knife. Paxton, terrified, pounds on the door and screams for help. But Reed calmly tells her not to be afraid, insisting Barnes will return to life just as the earlier woman did. When several minutes pass without Barnes reviving, Reed cuts open her arm and removes a small metal object, which he shows to Paxton, claiming it is a microchip, proving Barnes was never a real person but a computer program within a simulation, and that this is why she cannot be resurrected. He explains that the world itself is a simulation, and that the only way to reach the real world is through death, urging Paxton to end her own life. Paxton, however, recognizes the object as a birth control implant, and realizes the entire resurrection scenario was a deception orchestrated by Reed. She recalls that while everyone was distracted by Kennedy's visit, a second woman, dressed identically to the one who had died, emerged from a hidden door and took her place, reciting a script written by Reed, though she improvised the line, "It's not real," a deviation that led Reed to kill Barnes and attempt to convince Paxton that reality itself was false in order to cover up the failure of his plan. Paxton begins searching the basement for hidden doors and finds one leading to another cellar. Reed warns her not to enter unless she is prepared to discover the one true religion, but she proceeds anyway. Descending a shaft, she finds a woman's corpse, confirming her suspicions. Reed shuts the door behind her, and she continues using her phone's light, making her way through tunnels lined with rooms marked by occult symbols and signs of ritual practice. She finds a door secured with the same padlock used on their bicycles and discovers the key still in her pocket. Unlocking it, she finds a cold storage room containing several weakened women held in small cages. Reed arrives and asks whether she now understands the true nature of religion. Paxton explains that when he had earlier left them alone, he had gone outside to move their bicycles so they would not be found if someone came searching, and that the bicycle key had been placed in the wrong pocket deliberately, part of a plan to bring her to exactly this point. She concludes that the only reason she is standing there is because it is where Reed intended her to be, and that the true religion he has been describing all along is control. Reed, impressed, confirms she is correct, insisting that none of the women in the house are being held against their will, but are there because of their own beliefs and choices. He then cuts off one of a captive woman's fingers as punishment for deviating from the earlier script, an act that leaves Paxton in tears. As Reed continues speaking about religion, she seizes the opportunity to stab him with the letter opener Barnes had given her earlier. Paxton flees through the underground corridors and climbs back to the study, barricading the door with a table only to realize every door in the house remains locked. She decides her only option is to head back down and search for another way out. As she reaches the basement, Reed stabs her in the stomach, and both collapse to the floor, injured. With his remaining strength, he asks her to pray for them. She responds that praying will not change anything, but admits there is something meaningful in thinking of others with kindness, and begins to pray as Reed crawls toward her and leans against her, crying. He raises his knife to finish her, but is struck through the head with a nail-studded wooden plank, wielded by Barnes, who is still alive and has managed to kill him. She then collapses and dies in Paxton's arms. Afterward, Paxton makes her way upstairs and finds a model of the house, which reveals an escape route through an air duct. She crawls through it and finally leaves the house after enduring hours of captivity. Walking through the surrounding forest, a butterfly lands briefly on her hand, echoing the wish she once made to return as a butterfly and land on someone she loves before it flies off, leaving her alone in the snow.